Hi, I'm Megan Barrow, also working over at Unbuckle Your Fears. And you may know me from previous shows like 60 Minutes, not to steal something from The Simpsons, but yeah, so I was recently on 60 Minutes Australia. Well, a tiny part of me was, a tiny snippet of my story. So, but it was a story they did on anxiety, and I was one of the participants. But a day and a half of filming resulted in about 2.5 minutes of screen time. And I was really thrilled with the story overall, and I know how much has meant to people with anxiety and agoraphobia, and I know how important me being on talking about agoraphobia has been to those suffering. So it's one thing to talk about anxiety, but agoraphobia is anxiety at a whole different level, and unless you've gone through it, you don't understand. So you can try and empathise, but that's about it. So I thought I'd come on here and give a brief overview of a bit more about myself and my story. So I don't think you need to know about how I spiraled into anxiety. I've had it my whole life. I think they detailed that quite well, and they certainly detailed that I had agoraphobia, and for close to 3 years I didn't do much other than lay on a couch, and obviously there were better days than not, but the worst day would be me terrified to leave the couch and just go to the toilet. Not, those kind of days it was an achievement if I went to the letterbox, but most days I didn't even accomplish that. And yeah, it was just pure fear. Worse when I was on my own, but also bad when I had people around me. And that horrible nighttime between 12 and say 5 a.m. are just the worst, because you know that you're going to be annoying people or waking people up if something happens or you need help. So it was a pretty tough existence. I look back and wonder how I got through it. I did, thankfully. Certainly depression was in there, a really crippling depression as well, and I know that's also something people with agoraphobia and anxiety can also identify with. So, so we had that sort of detailed on 60 Minutes, but not how I got well. So, and also I want to make it really clear, because my mum freaked out at the end and she said, "Do they know you're well? I don't think they understand that you're well now. They didn't say that." So I am well. Here I am in my home, in my very messy office, and if my sister was looking at this, she would be disgraced that I'm doing this video with all this stuff over here. But hey, you don't care about that. And yes, so I'm in my own place. I run my own consulting business, and that's not to stop me from going out. It is actually harder than any job I've had, because I have to go out all over Melbourne, and sometimes beyond. I've had interstate trips and so forth. Agoraphobia I had a breakdown 22 years ago. My half-brother was just born, so it's very easy to remember that. Yeah, my recovery has, this year, in a few months, it is 20 years to the day that I first saw my psychiatrist. So I saw him a couple of weeks ago, told him about 60 Minutes, but it was really, I only see him probably about twice a year now, and it's just a top up for a script and say hi and how's things going. And he's semi-retired, and I'd love to give you his name and where I found him, but I'm not allowed to. For him, he wants to keep very anonymous and very much in the background. He's happy for me to give all his notes and all of that stuff to people, but he does not want his name mentioned. And also, I'm an ambassador with Beyond Blue, and interestingly, they don't want any of their ambassadors to detail where we got help, and I think that's all about liability and, you know, it's about giving false hope, and as much as you want to know exactly where, what, who, how, why I did what I did, or someone that's recovered, what they did, every journey is going to be different. So that's really important to stress. So so it's 20 years, and that was about a year worth of recovery. So so that makes 19 years of recovery, but that's been very up and down. So I was recovered, what does that make it? About 27. I returned to the workforce. That was really hard to get a job after a 3-year break. But I just returned to the workforce. A few years later, bought my first place and lived on my own. And recovery has been a roller coaster. I know I'm going a bit off track, but certainly it sort of went vroom, then sort of petered down and sort of plateaued, and then it kind of went vroom, and then it kind of plateaued down here for a bit, and then it kind of crept back. So I'm certainly here now. So yes, but the breaking point for me, or the turning point, should I say, for me and my recovery was I just was sick of it. I was sick of living the way I did, having no life. I finally got to the realisation that living with agoraphobia was not living at all, and for me, and I didn't know how I was going to get well. I'd read a number of books, and I saw the premise of things of there were these exposure therapies and what's anxiety and rah, 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 but it was very hard. I couldn't identify with a lot of people. I was single, living with my mum and sister, and they didn't really have the time to sort of mollycoddle me or take me out every day. They both worked full time, and I think they were the first to say they didn't quite understand what was going on either, or what I needed. They've become amazing over the years, but so I'd read these books, and nearly everyone seemed to be married. Everyone seemed to have this partner that would take them out, and I was like, well, that doesn't help me. I've got no one. I've got a dog and 2 cats sitting over here. So it was very hard for me to make those first steps. But getting to the point where I just wanted to get well, I'd been seeing a psychologist for all those years, the 2 years to that point, and she was amazing and someone I trust and would still see today when I'm having issues that I need to chat about. But she wasn't really helping with the anxiety, and I'd seen one psychiatrist and he was terrible. I went, I think, twice, the first time with my ex-boyfriend, and I just felt so uncomfortable the second time, and I wasn't going to return. So I went to my GP and said, right, I want to get well. I need a specialist in anxiety. I've got a great psychologist. I don't need that. I need a specialist in anxiety that's going to get well. I would like a female, and I would like someone fairly young that I will relate to, and go and find them. So my GP, she still remembers. I still see her, and she still remembers that day. And I'm a good person, a case study for her to tell people that have huge anxiety or struggling themselves. And she'll say, I had this client, this patient who came in with all these demands, and who I ended up with was a male, and he'd been specialising in anxiety for 20 years. So he was probably in his 50s. And what he did become, even though this is probably a bad way to think of it, it was almost like a father figure that I just trusted, and I almost wanted to please. And if he said, do this, I was like, no. And then I'd be, okay, because you're telling me to do it. So I went on this journey of understanding anxiety, and I've put up a lot of the handouts that he gave me on unbuckleyourfears.com, and it's under theory, I think I've called it. And I also link that back to I've put up the doctor notes that he handed out every week. So I'm going to add to these about my recollections from each session and talk about what I did afterwards and so forth and how I was feeling. So bear with me. This is quite an emotional process to do all this stuff, but I'm glad that I kept it all, which is great for you guys. So yeah, it was quite incredible. It was quite an awakenings moment of thinking, like, books were great, but they didn't quite talk to me. So I would go in there and say, oh, I've had a bad week, I've thought of this, blah, blah, blah. And he would say, hang on. And we'd trot off to his filing cabinet, go through some files, right, read this. And it would be exactly what I just said. And I was like, okay, I'm not going crazy. I'm not alone. This is actually a thing. People do think this. And it was like just this big relief that I'm not crazy, that I felt less alone. It felt tangible that I could get well because it had been identified as a thinking pattern and it challenged it. So that was cognitive behaviour therapy. I was also on medication, not a very addictive one, which I've now very proudly come off, which was very difficult. But whilst it was great for me and my mum was with me and we didn't want to go on it and mum certainly didn't want me on it, it was something that was so bad that it just had to be done, and it did help in the sense of it didn't get me out of the house, but it just shaved off a bit of anxiety. And for the first time in my life, so at 25, I'd had a full night's sleep having taken the first bit of medication, and that was incredible. Also, you don't realise what you don't have until you've got it, so you don't know what you don't know. So it was like, oh, okay, I've never had a full night's sleep, that's incredible. And then it was exposure therapy, so really, really, really hard. Something especially at the beginning I hated every moment of. I wanted to kill him. I wanted to ring him and say, you're going to kill me, and he would say, no, I'm not. So it's super hard. So you can see I really needed to want to get well because you have to have that tough love around you, because whilst it's lovely to have people embrace you, there's family and friends that can do that, but to get well, you need someone to say, hang on, yeah, you're going to do it, because you're not going to hurt yourself. Trust me, you're not going to hurt yourself, and you need someone that you believe during that process, and someone that will push you and not give you an option. One of the cleverest things he did one time was say, right, I've got my remote control for my car needs a new battery, so can you go up to this road and get me some batteries? And I said, oh, okay. So I'd done a bit of exposure, and I started walking and I was feeling really confident to do it. And then about halfway, I think I was close to the shops, I was like, hang on, I have to return with these because he's stuck. I can't run away. I can't jump on the tram and go home. I have to return and do this full thing. I can't give up at any point. And I was like, you bastard. You bastard. But I did it, of course. And it was fine, of course. So that gives you a bit of, I don't want to have this too long, and I know that YouTube only allows about a 15-minute upload at a time. So stick with me. I'm going to be doing much more of these. I'm thinking about a podcast as well, and also workbooks. Certainly articles will also continue. But please know I'm fully well. It's a process. I'm going to do another video shortly on my tips for recovery, so head over there for that one. And again, thank you to anyone that's reached out and told me their story. I honour your privacy, and thank you for telling me your stories, because it's exactly why I'm doing what I'm doing. And keep strong, stick in there.